out of the way. So I'll call the meeting to order, it being 3:04 p.m. And we have the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the County of Haliburton is located on Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which are Curve Lake, Rama, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Beau Soleil, and Georgian Island First Nations. We acknowledge a shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original Indigenous inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Thank you. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda unless there are any changes? Moved by Lisa, seconded by Adele. Thank you.
There she is.
Hey, look at this.
So sorry.
No, I'm glad you came.
We just approved the agenda. Come on down here, Jim.
Sorry, I just need to give one of these before I do
Great way to start a board meeting.
that.
That's how they do it.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's right.
So we've adopted the agenda. Any declarations of pecuniary interest, either right now or when it pops up on the agenda? Okay. We'll move to the consent agenda. Consent agenda is adoption of the draft minutes of the last regular meeting of March 8th, librarian's report of March 27th, circulation statistics, and the working committee reports. Are any questions on any of items on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, could I have someone to move the consent agenda, please? Well, seconded by Paul. Okay. Did I miss something?
No.
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 Tell me if I do. All right, next item is the financial reports and the financial report of March 23rd, actual versus budget. Chris, you're going to do that?
Sure. I mean, we're on track for sure, as we always are at this time. In terms of spending, one thing you'll notice is the office expenses are way down compared to where they were last year. And that's partly because we've actually installed the printing charges again. And we're hearing that, we're getting obviously more money each day. So that's going to balance out on the cost of those toner cartridges and whatnot. In the future, as I mentioned, accessibility features of tables make it more challenging, so it may be in a different format next month. But as always, if there's any questions about any line items, I'd be happy to explain. I feel like I know the numbers like the back of my hand, and I'm always able to help with questions.
Well, the bottom line is looking great. Anybody have a question? I have just one, nothing to do with the budget per se. Well, maybe indirectly. When is the van due?
So I reached out to Ford, it was last week, because one of our colleagues at the county was asking as well, because of course we're still borrowing the county's van. And he said that they were ready to put in their RIN number, which is like a SIN number for cars, or a VIN number, but it's related to when it gets built. And as soon as they have that number, then we'll know what the building timeline is and when they work backwards from that.
Okay.
So they did predict early summer, and I hope that it's not just optimism of the sales industry, but we'll see. Because as you know, we have had some false starts on securing a vehicle, and we're hoping to get it soon.
Well, they can build those things in about half an hour on the line if they put their mind to it. It's not very hard.
Yeah, well, it's built in North America as opposed to the ones that we were initially looking at with, I believe, Dodge. So it is close by for shipping. And while we're on the topic of financials, I just wanted to share that we did secure funding for 2 students this summer.
Yes, I saw that.
And so that's going to show up in the revenue line as well. Yeah.
Where do you get the students from?
So we're not sure yet, but Young Canada Works is the program that's run by the federal government, and we applied for that. And it'll be 2 students with a technology background, if possible, and to help Hillary and the rest of us run programming. We'll be putting out, we're going to have a meeting about it, I believe, tomorrow, and we'll be putting out a call for new helpers
Good,
with the help of county HR.
good, excellent. Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, I have a motion that says be it resolved that the Haliburton County Library Board accepts the financial report as presented. Mover? Seconder? Walt, I see your hand up. Not Walt, Cease. Okay, good. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, we're going to do 2 library policies. And the policy committee has met and looked at these and recommended to the board. So Chris, if you want to just quickly highlight both of them, we can move on.
Sure, there's a couple things with policies, thanks to the policy committee this month. The 2 policies we discussed was the Operations 02, OP02, that's Library Code of Conduct, both the policy and the actual code of conduct, as well as OP12, the Equipment Loan Policy, the policy, as well as the lending agreement. The secondary documents, like the code and the lending agreement, these were minor updates to adding the new logo and changing the font and making it more accessible. So those were very straightforward. The actual policies, the first one, 02, was very simple in a number of changes. We added to the opening line, the description of the policy, the word inclusive, because it shows up on many of our policies, and it was just simply missed when this one was written, I think. So it now reads, Haliburton County Public Library is committed to creating and maintaining a safe, positive, and inclusive environment where we treat each other with courtesy and respect. And there was just a word change where courtesy and respect were interchanged because it rolls off the tongue a bit better. Apart from that, that policy was sound, and like David said, it was approved by the committee for your decision to also pass it, should you so choose. Should I do the second one
Yeah,
too?
and then we'll do the motion.
Okay, so the second one was a bit more in depth in terms of changes, and I gotta put my glasses on, sorry.
You're welcome to the club.
So this one, we just updated some of the wording. For example, dropping words like pagers and what was it, faxes. And what we did was we just called it equipment. So we just rewrote the first line: equipment available for library patrons to borrow will be cataloged and searchable through the online catalog. As well, we struck a few things such as in the past, there was some commentary about ensuring the equipment is secured. I think this was to do with locks that were on computers and whatnot, and it just didn't make a lot of sense for what we're doing now. So instead of that, number 5, HCPL shall be, we added a new line about responsibility for people borrowing and for us lending. So the new line reads, sorry, I just need to get the right one. HCPL shall ensure we educate the borrower adequately should they have questions about basic operation of the equipment. It is expected the borrower will also take responsibility and ask for assistance if required. So that just sort of puts it in our ballpark to make sure that before it goes out the door, people understand basically how to work it, whether it's the projector or a tech kit. And then also that they ask questions, vice versa. There was a line at the end, number 7. And number 7 says, equipment loans are subject to availability. Use of library equipment will be prioritized for programming and other in-library use. This is important just because it helps us prioritize, especially this time of year, for what we need to do, and it allows Hillary to reserve the equipment before the staff or the public can borrow it. Apart from that, we dropped the appendices. for the e-reader loan agreement, because we no longer lend e-readers. We just can't keep up with the variations of types and how quickly they come out. It would be something that is not a great thing to spend money on. We'd far rather use it for Daisy readers for visually impaired folks.
Great.
Like I said, that one had more wholesale changes. They have both been updated with the changes recommended by the committee to the accessible version that we'll now be putting up on the website shortly. But it's up to you to, if there's any other points.
Any questions on this one? Okay, seeing none, I have two motions then. First one is be it resolved that the Haliburton County Library Board accepts policy OPO2 Library Code of Conduct as presented. Mover, please. Paul, thank you. Seconder. Cease. Thanks, Cease. And the second one will be it resolved that the Haliburton County Library Board accepts OP-12 equipment loan policy as presented. Can I have a mover, please? Jennifer? And, well, thank you. Any questions? Two questions. Paul,
Go ahead, Paul, first.
Just a question on the mechanics of it, like you've had a separate motion for each of the two policies. Is there a requirement on that then? I'm just curious, like if we had 4 or 5 coming through one day, you have to do individual motions on them.
It's if I could,
Yeah.
It's actually a really great question, and it leads me into the next topic, which yeah, unless there's other questions, I can run right into that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so
hold it. Cease has his hand up.
oh yeah.
I was just going to ask, when you're looking at the equipment loan, and you're basically saying, if I'm not mistaken, $500 if you don't get it back in time. Are we going to take
the projector? Yeah.
Yeah, are we going to take a credit card imprint before they pick it up? Otherwise, how are we going to get our $500?
Yeah, I mean, it gets put onto their card on their record, so we have it in the database that they owe. We can withhold library services until certain fines are negotiated. Really, at that point, my understanding is the account would be blocked for an amount of that high. Really, anything over $50 or $100, we take that very seriously.
I don't think we've ever had any not come back, have we, Chris?
Yeah. But to answer your question in practicality reasons, we're not yet set up for digital money. And this is, we looked into the infrastructure that it would take for all of our branches, and it's not quite doable yet in terms of having those debit machines. It would also involve special training. So it's something that we're rolling out hopefully in future, but it's been part of the discussion for sure, because printing, people come without change now, right?
No problem.
Okay. Thanks, Cease. Now, Chris, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. So one of the ways in which we're able to slow down the conversation and have people ask detailed questions about policies, because it is important, we only review these every 2 years, is to separate them individually. One of the challenges that we discovered, and thanks to one of our members who was attending the orientation course with Ontario Library Service, they did a deep dive into what is required in terms of public record around committees. So what we learned is that the Public Libraries Act actually specifies that committees should be made public as well. In the same way that we do with the board meetings. There isn't the same work needing to be done around agendas, and recording is still important. We don't actually have to, we just need to make minutes, keep the minutes, and then keep them in the library for members of the public to ask should they have questions about what went down in those committee meetings. At the end of the day, the policy committee, we get together and we talk about like the various spellings of behavior in the same document, or, you know, dropping semicolons. The public may or may not be interested, but they're certainly welcome to attend those. So this is new information for perhaps some of the policy committee members. They will, we can record them in the same way with YouTube in future. But given that, the fact is like when we prepare for these meetings, there is a flurry of activity in the library office. It's to the point where Melanie and I, we book our holidays around board meeting weeks. And so to add this other component to have all of future committee meetings public as well. One of the suggestions when I reached out to the library community, who was also very surprised to learn about 17 libraries said, we didn't realize we were supposed to be making these meetings public. One of the other libraries that had experience with this spoke up and said, batching policies, as Paul asked about, into a larger meeting, maybe every 2 months or every 4 times a year is how that they're able to manage the workload for adding this level of scrutiny, which is interestingly, when we went back into the records for HCPL on March 16th, 2020, it was proposed to get the council together in the chambers at Dysart and discuss no less than 22 policies in one day. But you'll note that March 16th, 2020 was the exact day the pandemic shut everything down worldwide. So I have full confidence this meeting never took place. But having said that, that would be my request, given what's required. It would be easier for us to manage if we were to prepare, say, 4 or 7 policies in one go, and then get the community together.
That's a great idea. As long as there's no urgency of those policies. I mean, we have like I don't know, 50 or 60 or 100 policies. We've got a pile of.
There's around 100,
It's gonna take a
and
while for us to get through them all.
we are required to do at least review them every 2 years.
Yeah.
So it would be in our interest to like accelerate in this way. And then it allows for us to sort of document it, say 4 times a year in the same binder with minutes.
That sounds good. And Adele, thank you for bringing this to our attention. You're the one that did it. I really appreciate it very much. Well,
One further question, and that is with the proposed county council review, was that something that's required as well, or what, the review of 22 policies, or is that what this subcommittee is actually doing now in place of?
that's okay.
So the requirement actually comes from the Public Libraries Act, which is clear that not only are we supposed to create policies on an as-needed basis or at the beginning of the organization starting, and many of our policies were derived, the core of them were derived from the Ontario Library Service templates. But because of the swiftness of modernization, it's the requirement, and I think you can negotiate on the time period, but most libraries pick every 2 years to go through them. And that gives a board 2 chances in their term to go over, because by the time they do it the second time, they're well advised about, details like what we're talking about.
Yeah. I don't think that those 100 policies have been worked on for some time, as far as I can recall. I've only been on a short time, but
the pandemic slowed that down
Yeah,
immensely.
it was amazing. Okay, I think, I'm not sure I asked the motion to be carried, but moved by Jennifer, seconded by Walt, that it be it resolved for Haliburton County Library Board accept OP 12 equipment loan policy as presented. Everybody in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, and did we just deal with number 924?
So no, that was number 7, 1, and 2.
No, but your subsequent.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Policy.
Yeah, actually we did.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So the next item, I just wanted to make sure, so when I get to it, I can skip it.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. Nothing like jumping ahead when we've got time. Financial update for information purposes.
Okay. So I just wanted to bring to your attention that it was audit season through March, and it went very well. I actually got questions right up until yesterday, but they have everything that they need, and they've signed off on it from, I believe, KPMG. And as per last year, I requested by popular demand, because he was so popular last time, to have Oscar Poloni back if possible, and he's agreed to join us for the May board meeting to just give you the Coles Notes version of the document that they'll be providing us with. So we'll attach the audit to our board package and then invite him. And as per last year, Oscar attended at the beginning of our meeting in May. So he'll do that again if that's all right, at the pleasure of the board.
Yeah.
And as you may recall, it's about a 15 or 20-minute opportunity to ask detailed questions about finances for the library from someone that's not me. Because that's always useful. And he's very knowledgeable, and he also really cares about public libraries, as we discovered last year.
Okay, great. Everybody okay with that? Good.
Okay.
Go. Okay.
And I just wanted to update that one of the things that they showed us was the surplus for 2022. After we took the van money aside and the 20,000 that was set aside for brand improvement, fixing the meeting room in the back and furnishing in the children's area. That money, there's still left in 2022, $4,696.17.
Great.
And the last point I want to make is there, contrary to what I thought was the case, there is no cybersecurity audit this year. It may be every 2 or 3 years, I was told by IT, which is
Normal.
there's pros and cons, but it's normal. Yeah.
It's normal. Yeah. Cybersecurity is becoming a much more aggressive issue now than it has in the last couple of years. So I suspect they may review how often they do that. It's getting pretty serious what's going on right now.
We learned today that in a meeting that $2.5 million has been defrauded from folks in Haliburton County alone in the year 2022, and over 500 million across Canada last year. So it is serious. The scams are very creative and more accurate. The spelling's better. I got a text from the CRA, and it was looked completely legit until I went to the site and realized that CRA will never text you, and they tell you that on their site.
That's right. Yeah.
But if I had pushed respond, who knows what access they would have had to my phone.
When I was the president of Toronto Hydro, my biggest worry was security on one of our generating stations and transfer stations. Yeah, it takes 1 or 2 of those out, the whole thing goes down. Terrible. Spent a lot of money trying to make sure that didn't happen. Okay, thanks, Chris. Reciprocal borrowing agreement.
Yeah, so as you may know, there are about 5 library systems that we have reciprocal borrowing agreement arrangement that was hammered out, I think as early as 5 or 10 years ago. This is Lake of Bays, Bancroft. What else? There's Kawartha Lakes Public Library as well, and the libraries south of Bancroft that are all merged together. I can't remember their acronym.
Yeah, I wrote it down.
Oh, thank you.
Galway, Cavendish, and Harvey,
Perfect.
and Smith, Ennismore, and Lakefield.
Right. So relatively easy to set up. It really is just a conversation with the CEO, with the approval of the board, because it is some work to initially start it. But what essentially a reciprocal borrowing agreement means is that our patrons can arrive in those communities with their card and receive the same level of services and vice versa when they come here. So if you're visiting a grandparent in a different area, you can still use library services with your same card. There is some background shuffling about what happens if a book arrives in the wrong drop box and it's not from our library. The trick in the modern era is that we subscribe to certain services such as Canopy, Press Reader, and Overdrive license for books and audiobooks. But some of them are very clear in the contracts about what is permitted in terms of who can use the services, and if what you're paying for is your community, Haliburton County, then it's supposed to just be those members. So we're looking into the background for that, but we were approached by Peterborough Public Library to see if they were interested in creating the same agreement with Haliburton County Public Library. Again, it's just some details to work out. There is some conversation because it is more work for staff, whether an organization that's in a city, hour and a half away, is a good relationship to have. The counter argument to that is, of course, people go down there for shopping. So there's, gives access to even a greater amount of library resources than before. the reason why these are important in this era and why libraries such as Peterborough might be fishing for new partners is because we don't have the same funding that we did from under the government, current government at the provincial level, which cut the courier service between small libraries. So getting those books like we used to is a lot harder, and we do things by mail now. So I just wanted to put the pieces out for you to consider. And either way, we're pleased to follow up with Peterborough, depending on what you feel.
Any discussion? Yep, Jen, go ahead.
Well, it strikes me that, well, maybe I should put this one as a question. In theory, it feels like a good experiment to see how it works, whether there's added value for Haliburton County. But the experiment sounds like would have an awful lot of work behind it. So I don't know if the work is such an offset to the experiment. I sort of look to you folks to guide us on that.
So that's a fair point. And the way that we could easily counter in the negotiation is to say we would like to try it for a limited time.
Right.
And that way, say we are getting suddenly 100 books that we have to send back in the mail, and it's like affecting our bottom line, and maybe they're only sending back 3 a month. I mean, this is worst case scenario. It's probably not going to happen because normally we would ask the patron to pick up the book and take it back to the correct place. But we could say we'll do it as a trial for 6 months or something. Again, it's an agreement. So.
Adele?
Sorry, I wasn't clear. Are these reciprocal borrowing agreements in place with any libraries right now?
So
With
the list that Andrea gave us, yeah, we have Bancroft, Lake of Bays. And so every summer, for example, we'll get someone coming in with a Court the Lakes public library card, and our staff often will have to do a communication to remind them to expect cards. And the fact is we put them into our system with the same number that is on their card, so we're able to track it. But they are privy to using all of the services in the library, and then vice versa. Like you could drive down to Kinmount if that was closer to your home. It's perfect for those families on the border of communities.
So how do our patrons know then that these exist?
So
These agreements exist.
yeah, so we have it documented in our policy. We have it, once things are on the website, like we're still building the web page as we go, but we can definitely put campaigns out as we do in the summer. And then, like I said, the Friday update, just let staff know last summer, like, hey, by the way, we got this card from Kinmount, and expect perhaps more from that area. Yeah, it's really like as Jennifer's pointing out, it is a lot of work in some ways. If every of our services were going full bore all the time, we wouldn't be able to accommodate them with the staff contingent that we have. So what we do is we feature things in spotlights on the website, or we'll feature them in a campaign to say, hey, get your skating passes. And then for a while we'll receive that and we'll push something else forward. But if we do everything all the time, then I'm not sure, we'd have to come to you and ask for more staff.
Yeah, no, I the way you're doing it is great. And I really think, sorry, Paul, you had a question before I start jamming on.
No, well, you're
No,
awesome.
go ahead.
Just one further from Jennifer's comment. There are some agreements in place now, and I'm just curious if there are costs that we're aware of, or some insight as to the utility or usage. If so, yes, and if not, if we're going to engage in this, are we going to do a bit of tracking or not to burden you with more work, but just to see if there is some uptake or not. I mean, I'd love to go to Bob Case and read a bunch of their books, but I don't even have enough time to read all the stuff that's in Wilberforce or Cardiff. So anyway.
Yeah. So I can tell you that without the courier service that we used to enjoy, I think it was a $300,000 cut from the provincial government. We now do everything by mail. And so when people ask for an interlibrary loan, they write to us at ILO. It's ILO at Haliburton Library, and they can request any book that they so choose. If we can afford it and we think it's a good fit for our library, we'll buy it and we'll put it in our collection and they can use it. If it's something that's kind of rare and it's maybe a college level book that we're not going to carry, and it's, $200, we'll seek it out and say, Trent University, and we'll see if they can ship it up to us. And if it goes missing, then that person has to pay, $50 or whatever the fee is. And we pay for the shipping and handling. And we have a budget line for that, postage. But one way to accentuate what's available to staff or to patrons and community members, especially in summer, because this is an area in which we get an influx of 20, 30, 40,000 people, is to say, we'll recognize the card from your hometown area. And it's just a matter of how far do we want to go. And then, tracking could be done for sure. I can tell you it's very low most of the year. It's summer that when we normally get the bump up.
I think interlibrary loans are a great idea, particularly for communities like ours, where our population basically doubles in the summer and then some. It's one more way for us to reach out and say, welcome to our county, welcome back to the cottage. We treat them like they're permanent residents almost in that context. They have access to it. I think it's a wonderful idea. I mean, I come from a small town way back when. And we used to do that in our little city of Sudbury. We have relationships with North Bay and Timmins and all those other places up there. It's fun.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that these borrowing agreements are being hammered out in small libraries everywhere, like Smith Falls, and like we have dealt with libraries with ILO all across Ontario. And like I said, we have the budget for it. It makes sense. It's very rare that we are unable to find a book that someone needs, because Cheryl's very good at sourcing it, and we do share amongst libraries. So, and we're very blessed with having, thanks to this board as well, for the increase for beating inflation, so that we can virtually afford a fairly good list of books every month that we hear about through our website, because there's a form that you can fill out if there's a book that we don't have, and we'll go and get that for you. And it really just comes down to, have we got enough money in the kitty that month to fulfill the list. But we're actively the real challenge is space. Like, there's a finite number of books that we can actually put in our libraries, because there's only so much space for them.
Okay, thanks everybody for that. It was a great discussion, and carry on, Chris. I think that is really good.
So should we say that we'll try a trial offer for 6 months?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's try out and see how it
Okay.
goes.
It is pending, like I said, getting some direction. It'll be from Aaron on the digital resources and the contracts that we have. We might have to find a way to separate that, as some libraries have, so it's not the digital borrowing.
Okay, sounds good. We've done 9.4. Let's do 9.6 before we hear from Aaron, so that's out of the way, and then Aaron can be the last on the agenda. How's that, Aaron? You okay with that? Okay, so 9.6 is respect to tours in June to our various branches with the board.
Yeah. So
What'd you have in mind?
Well, it showed up on our annual work plan, and we just simply wanted to put some dates out there in advance, because it is usually a full day where we take everyone around to.
Maybe we'll have our new band by then. We can all throw in that.
That's what we're hoping. Although there's no seats, so that'll be all
We'll
right.
have it standing like in a subway.
So we've got 4 dates to propose. The second part of this is transportation, because I crunched the numbers, and it works out about the same whether we send 5 cars with 2 people each, or if we were to charter a bus. And I know that sounds like it might be expensive, but Hammond has rates for nonprofits, as far as I understand. And we also have a board budget, which last year we didn't actually spend at all.
Yeah.
So it's really up to you how you'd like to travel, but we could look into having a bus come to take you around, but it will probably take up the better part of a day to see the branches, both in some cases inside and out, as you'll hear momentarily. And so the dates that I wanted to propose, if you wanted to just make a decision later: Wednesday, June 21st, Thursday, June 22nd, Friday, June 23rd. So basically that week, and then Wednesday, June 28th. It's not going to be a perfect world. I realize you're all very busy, and you may not be able to come.
Could I suggest that we do a doodle poll? Everybody know what that is? And
Don't bother including the 21st though, because that's county council. So that's 4 of us right on that right day for you right there. But
That one right off the list. So the 22nd, 23rd, or 28th. I'm good on the 23rd and 28th, but I'll answer the doodle poll on that. Is that okay? Or do you want to,
Doodle?
yeah,
Okay,
Okay,
so who wants to do the 22nd?
It's not what you do.
so the,
I don't know.
a piece of software.
Oh, who would have thought?
I can send out the doodle.
Well, listen, let's do it here. So the 21st is out, the
Melanie.
22nd is out.
Yeah,
Melanie, you never heard of doodle?
no,
I'll send it.
we didn't have that at Minden Hills.
yes, we do.
Not me.
So
Not my
so the
position.
2 dates are the 23rd and the 28th. How's that?
What about the 22nd? Is that,
I'm tied up all day.
oh, got you.
I've got a.
I can do the 28th.
28th? Everybody good on the 28th? Anybody not? I'm good. I'm good.
I can't promise you.
Well, let's,
We'll put out a reminder. and you
we'll put a
can-
reminder, Walton, if you can, that'd be great. So it's gonna be, everybody on.
28th is the best day for me.
Me
Great,
too.
done. There you go, 28th.
There's my doodle.
You doodle. That was easy, eh, Melanie?
It was easy.
It's faster.
See?
It is fast.
Who needs technology when you got me?
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. So the 28th will be the board tour of all of our branches.
Okay, and as I mentioned, in some cases, we'll be kind of looking inside the branch, but then also outside. And
Yeah.
did you want
Yeah, sure. I can just put an item for bring forward for a tour. I had a few things that I've noticed that are potential maintenance issues at the Minden Library branch, and I just speak to them or share them with everybody when tour that day.
Sure. Yep. It's an opportunity to really sort of explore the branch, all the branches, and then ask questions about anything you notice or anything you want to know about.
And Paul, if you want to, in advance of that, just send the list to Chris and he can follow up with Mindy directly.
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
all right.
Good.
Yeah, that's a long time. If we're talking at the end of June, I would prefer to, that's a long time for me to wait to have that information. So it's okay if you point it out, but I'd like to know what that is to take before council because we're just finalizing budget right now. So that might be something we need to know if there's any substantial cost to it.
Sure.
Good call, Lisa. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
So the 28th it is. Paul, you forward that to Chris. We can get it over to Lisa and maybe get it done even before we show up in June.
We may already have it on the list.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, that brings us to Aaron. We're in your hands, Aaron.
All right.
By the way, my daughter's name is Aaron, in case you didn't know that.
Oh, it's a great name. What can I say?
Oh, yeah.
I stuck an extra N on it.
Oh, right on. Good stuff. So I'm just sharing my screen here, getting my presentation up for all of you. So good afternoon, everyone. You know who I am. I'm Erin Kernahan Burning. I'm the Technology and Systems Coordinator at the Haliburton County Public Library. And I am just going to tell you a little bit about what I do. So the Technology and Systems Coordinator position at HCPL is just over a year old at this point, so there's still some growth to be had in this role. But the things that are probably the most important part of my job right now are working with our integrated library system, so our ILS, to ensure everything is working the way we need it to, managing our e-resource subscriptions and patron access to that, which Chris alluded to earlier, website maintenance, maintaining knowledge about technology in public libraries in general, and incorporating that knowledge into plans and budgets. So basically where technology and libraries meet is kind of where my position is. Staff technology education, and one thing I've been doing right now is helping a lot with AODA education and compliance support. So making sure that we're complying with the online information portion of the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. So this entails understanding how everything fits together. So kind of what you'll see on the right of the slide is just an example of how there are many interlocking pieces to the different services we use. And I need to understand how anything going on with those services might change or disrupt our overall services to the public. I need to effectively communicate and collaborate with multiple supports, including County IT, the Ontario Library Consortium support, as well as vendors and other consortia. I also need to be able to relay pertinent information to staff regarding things like maintenance, outages, product changes. I sometimes joke, I'm not IT, but in the course of my job, I do contact many different IT departments. So I'm just really good at contacting IT departments. I'm also part of a group called the Ontario Library Consortium Techies Group, and this is a group of library workers who basically do the same stuff that I'm doing, and we meet bi-monthly to discuss upcoming product changes, training opportunities, best practices, common issues, and the different projects that we're doing. So some of the things we got done in 2022 include launching HCPL's new website. We also organized the storage room to better house our maker equipment, which included taking down the old shelving in there that wasn't fit for our purposes anymore, and adding storage cabinets, including a charging cabinet. And that has made charging things like 3D pens, iPads, laptops, that type of thing so much easier than trying to find power bars and a wall socket, somewhere. We added Press Reader to our digital library offerings. We also established a best of the web categorization for our digital library to offer patrons authoritative free resources on the web. And I also participated in some advanced ILS training for our patron database. We have some projects for 2023 that are already on the go. So I'm developing a series of technology guides for staff, which is just a series of how-tos for things we commonly run into. This is especially useful for things that staff might not be working with all the time, but that still crop up on a regular basis. So for instance, if we only put in support requests to Overdrive once a month, for instance, or every other month, having instructions on that helps us so that we don't have to relearn it each time we have to do it. So that helps the process along. We are doing some further development of our program and events calendar. You heard from Hillary last month that programming is very busy at HCPL. So we're developing some more tools to manage that better. Our online public access catalog, BiblioCommons, has a very customizable menu that we're working on tweaking to make that more useful to patrons. So having quick links to things like genre searches and format searches and audience searches and stuff like that, so that when you're browsing our catalog online, it becomes, it's surfacing information quicker for the user. You've already heard a little bit about the necessity of making all of our online content, including documents, conform with the AODA, which also means conforming with the World Wide Web Consortium accessibility guidelines. So I've been practicing those skills myself and delivering training to our admin staff so that we can all start creating documents accessibly from the start. We'll be starting a radon screening kit lending program in the fall, and that involves some preparation and collaboration with different departments and organizations, including the health unit. Home location mapping. This is a project that I'm working on with collections. It's actually a good example of how plans can change as you go. So we did some planning for one solution for this and quickly discovered that it would involve adding a large amount of data in our catalog, which can cause unexpected problems in other areas. So we actually worked with OLC to find a simpler solution, which will be much easier to implement. So that's the thing about, working with these different organizations and people with expertise, is that you can sort of talk through a problem and come to a solution that will meet everybody's needs.
Sorry, could you just tell us, is the home location mapping for the purposes of the van, or what is it?
What it is so every item has a home location, and the way those items are mapped to our online catalog is confusing. So
Sorry, it's not the clientele, it's not your patron home mappings. Yeah, okay.
no, yeah, it's for items. So for really the problem is if you look at our catalog right now and you see a book is checked out, there's another column that says collection on shelf, which doesn't make sense, right? And that's because of how items have been given a home location and how that's mapped to BiblioCommons. And there's some limited flexibility on how we can make that display on BiblioCommons. So now the solution we're looking at, we were going to change all the home locations to make more sense. But digging into that much data can mess up things like automated things being in transit and routing and that type of thing. So what we're doing instead is we're working on trying to figure out if we can actually just hide that column until that becomes a little bit more customizable. And then we'll see about doing something else with it. So that's what that one's about. It's very in the weeds into the ILS kind of stuff. And Hillary and Chris alluded to this already, but we did get our Young Canada Works grant, and we'll be starting that process. This will be really good because these students will be involved in doing a maker and programming technology assessment, including developing some programs around that. And this goes beyond it just being an inventory because it's not just about what stuff we have, but how we're using it and how we're using it to enrich the community. I'm kind of from the Mr. Rogers school of how we use technology, and that is, use it intentionally, use it for a purpose, use it to solve a problem, or, again, like enrich someone's experience in life. And then finally, e-resource planning for 2024. That's an annual thing. I'll start in the fall when the Ontario Library Service releases their provincial e-resource pricing. And during this time, I'll go back and I'll look at the different vendor dashboards for our usage statistics, see what's being used and what isn't, and get a sense about what other resource products are out there. I wanted to just share with you a little bit about the super conference presentation we did. That should say 2023. So it's the 2023 OLA super conference presentation. And we did I presented on practical website accessibility with Bethany Morse from MugoWeb, and we gave an in-person presentation followed by a recorded virtual presentation, and we engaged with the audience via chat in that. There were 30 in-person attendees at SuperConference at our presentation. 90 attended live during the virtual presentation, and as of February 8th, there were 424 who accessed the presentation on demand. I had a number of follow-up chats with library staff across Ontario from both large and small libraries, which just goes to show we're all grappling with the same problems, just it's a matter of scale. And we had some really great session feedback that was positive and confirmed that we did what we set out to do. Mainly, I think the feedback that I value the most was that we kind of stayed away from jargon, and we gave some really tangible, like, here are things you can actually do to get started on making your resources more accessible. And that's everything.
Thank you very much, Erin. That was extremely well done. Very good. Any questions of Erin? It's nice to say we took the lead among the large and small libraries.
Yeah, and actually kudos to both Erin and Bethany, because I attended the presentation and I could see that there was a lot of hunger in the room for how to do what we've already done. And MugoWeb was already skilled in the most recent version of what's the acronym?
WCAG. So colloquially WCAG. It's the World Wide Web Consortium Accessibility Guidelines.
And after Aaron's talk, people came up from the tables and were asking more one-on-one questions, and we established relationships because of that, which is exactly the intention of conference attendance.
Excellent. Okay, with that, I have a motion. Be it resolved that the Haliburton County Public Library Board receives for information the 2023 Technology and Systems Coordinator presentation for information purposes. Have a mover, please. Cease, thank you. Seconder? Well? Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Now, councilors want to add anything to the next little round table from the elected officials that are here? Everybody's recovering from Easter, okay?
Yeah.
I had my grandkids here. It's going to take me 2 weeks to get the house back to normal. It's crazy. Okay, being nothing, any other questions before we close the meeting, please?
Yeah, we have a bit of a challenge, I think, with the next due date. We've got it scheduled for May the 10th at 3.
Yeah.
And it appears now we're going to be extending our accessibility meeting, which is on May the 10th, from 1 till 3.
Okay.
Okay,
So just thought I would point that out. The question was asked, would the library board be willing to go back to a 4 o'clock meeting?
Like Mike Rudder was asking?
No.
Okay. I mean,
Just
I'm fine at 4.
all the other counselors were there, so you could just decide. It doesn't matter.
I'm partially responsible for that in that I've got an hour's drive.
yes,
So if we don't end our committee the whole meeting on time, then
Yeah,
I might have to be, in Minden for 40 minutes
Yeah.
before then, and
no problem.
it's just a bit awkward.
Yeah,
we'll help you.
thank you for the information. I didn't know that, but we can certainly update the work plan and do what we did at the beginning of the year with the budget meetings that were happening, and just say beginning at 4 p.m. today due to a longer county council meeting.
Perfect,
Great, thank you.
perfect. Okay, that's the end of our meeting. I'm going to have a motion here. Be it resolved that the April 12th, 2023 regular meeting of the Haliburton County Library Board now adjourned. I just need a mover. I don't need a seconder, and I don't need a carry. Who would like to move or adjourn? Adele, thank you very much.